What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Sony and live service. You know, when those two words are in the headlines, that it's probably not going to be good news. And in fact, it wasn't, because wow, am I impressed. Wasn't a great day yesterday for Sony and fans of their single-player games. And of course, there's a lot of questions for Hermen Hulst and just the way that they're picking some of these games out. But we're going to go over all of that here today. Also, we're going to be talking about those GTA 6 leaks because things continue to evolve online, and in fact, is going in kind of a malicious direction with some of this stuff. And hey, Gamescom right around the corner, and Microsoft put out a whole list of different games we can expect to see on their streams. And yes, there's one in particular that we're going to be pointing out, but we'll go over all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, going over the world of gaming news, trying to keep you up to date. So just know if you don't get a notification in the morning, there's probably a video here to check out on YouTube, as well as on Spotify, video and audio included there. And we're going to start today with those PlayStation 5 console covers for Wolverine, as they did go up yesterday for pre-order, and they're gone. Like you can see over on their website, just unavailable. This happened very, very quickly. The controller as well, but the thing with the console covers I was curious about is they are PS5 Pro covers, so you feel like there's less of an audience out there for it, but they still went pretty quick. I guess there's also the question as to how many did Sony even provide, but then of course I go over just to take a look on eBay, and they're going for 2 to 3 times the amount. Yes, scalpers struck pretty quickly here and are doing their best to sell. Some of them are selling, by the way, for like $150 and up. Don't buy them, obviously, but people are, because it's Wolverine. It's still a very popular franchise and IP to be selling, obviously in the video game space, yes, but just in general. So there we go. I guess the console covers, they're doing well for Sony, at least for how many they made, and then even the controller. I am mostly just interested in the yellow controller, so I'll see if I can pick that up, and we'll do like an unboxing around the time of release. Also, with the Steam Machine and the Steam Controller out, we've been kind of hanging out waiting to see what would happen with the Steam Frame. Well, it looks like it's probably getting fully announced and set up here pretty soon, because like the actual setup videos started to make the rounds as they are currently hosted and viewable on Valve's site. And when I was going through this, it was pretty funny. There's a few they do the unboxing, but they also show a sign-in process where you can actually point your phone camera at the lens for the Steam Frame and then scan the QR code that way. And they even say in the video, it's a weird way to do it, but you can. So there's that. But like you could go through and just get an early look at the Steam Frame getting unboxed. There's still a lot of questions though around mostly the price. It sounds like this is going to be more expensive than even people were expecting with the worst case scenario. This isn't going to be something cheap. It's going to be more expensive than the Steam Machine, I feel like. And that'll be an interesting price to see come to fruition here, because I figured the thing would have been out already, but clearly it's gone through the whole situation that we've seen the Steam Machine go through, where it's been delayed, and then it shows up and there is massive sticker shock. So we're probably going to see that soon. Just be ready for that one. Oh, and we had a new trademark that was spotted for Nintendo, and you can see it's Dr. Mario World. I saw this pop up over on My Nintendo News and was looking at it and said, wait a minute, isn't that like an iOS or Android game? And I double checked, it is 2021 when Nintendo moved off of that game. And so now people are thinking, hey, does this new trademark mean that they're going to move it to the Switch? I mean, maybe. You know what? Dr. Mario World and even some of these other phone games that maybe they cancel or whatever else, right? Or they shut down. I think they would make some sense for a Nintendo Switch Online. Sure, you could move them over and sell them, but they were already like free-to-play games for a lot of these titles. And if you just move it into NSO and remove some of the microtransaction stuff, it would be, I think, an interesting one to tie in even to some of the like mass multiplayer stuff they've done with things like Tetris 99. So just something to keep an eye out for. This could also just be basic paperwork for trademarks, just to make sure they don't lose the Dr. Mario World title for whatever reason, but just something to keep in the back of your mind as we go forward. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Sony and their live service initiative that has not gone according to plan at all. I mean, it's worked out with Helldivers 2, but I do question the level of confidence that Sony had in Helldivers 2 versus the amount of confidence they had in something like Concord. Really, when I look at how Sony has been treating this, I question if they have an eye at all for what will succeed in live service and what won't. Even recently with Bungie, they decided to move off of Destiny 2 that, by the way, has similar numbers now to Arc Raiders, and they stuck with Marathon, which is a fifth at best of the current player count for something like Destiny 2. With that said, though, with Bungie, we already know that wasn't a great purchase for Sony, and they've been trying to figure their way out of that for quite some time, to the point where they're just writing down large chunks of value on any of the operating income that they're making in some of the previous fiscal reports. Okay, so what about, I don't know, Horizon, or Horizon Zero Dawn, Forbidden West? That franchise has been pretty steady for Sony. It's fairly popular. Makes sense that, sure, they would spin it off and see if they could make a live service game, or how about two? Steel Frontiers, that's being handled by NCSoft, and then Hunter's Gathering, something that they have recently been doing like these closed play tests with, and I thought they were lining up for release. Now we're not even sure if the thing is coming out. All right, this is coming way of a new report from Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg, where we can see, says Sony's PlayStation division is overhauling Horizon Hunter's Gathering, the online action game it announced earlier this year, following negative player feedback, according to people familiar with the company's plans. Following that poor feedback in private testing earlier this year, the plan now is to strip out the live service component and turn it into more of a traditional cooperative multiplayer game with a story mode and a far smaller scope. The game is not yet canceled, but the studio told staff in a meeting on Wednesday that they will have through December to impress executives with their next milestone. I mean, they have, 4 months then? Basically before they go on, holiday break or anything. It's like, hey, you better show up with something that, is impressive to where we do want to sign off and continue putting money into this thing, because just revamping it is going to cost money. And then they have to come up with a whole new pipeline for what they want to do with it post-launch and how much of a live service, not live service game they want it to be, because it's still an online multiplayer game overall. It's just, I do wonder why they felt like they needed two Horizon live service games, because the strategy for Sony should be the single player studios that have come this whole way making these single player adventure action whatever games, right, that underneath of Sony to help sell their system. That's what they should just be doing outright. Okay, that's what they're good at. Stick with it. And then they go out and they find studios that they partner with to make these live service games so it does not interfere and really at times delay any releases from these single player games, so they have to turn their entire attention to these things. So when they have Horizon Steel Frontiers is being worked on by NCSoft over here, and then Hunter's Gathering being worked on Guerrilla over here, I don't really know why they need both. Why wouldn't they just work with NCSoft, have a PS5 version of, by the way, a game that looks more like Horizon than Guerrilla themselves working on Hunter's Gathering? See, because money lost is one thing. Sony, they're a big company. They can work it out. And yeah, maybe that's why they're being more aggressive with their margins, whether it's raising prices or, I don't know, moving to a potential digital future here happening in 2028. Again, they need that margin because, well, I mean, Bungie costs $3.6 billion. Then you look at things like Concord, and the list goes on of canceled projects. There are many. But then you start to realize there's also lost time. That is the most frustrating part to myself, and I think many other people who aren't necessarily reliant on Sony's books. It's like, what are you actually going to make for the end consumer here in terms of games? Well, that's where we get to, I think the worst part about this whole thing. You can see this again over on Bloomberg, saying a tiny team has been plotting out the next single-player Horizon game, but it remains years away from completion. That's right. Most of Guerrilla was on Horizon Hunter's Gathering. A small team was working on what should be the end of their Horizon trilogy. By the way, they didn't exactly leave us in a great spot after Forbidden West. We're still kind of waiting for the third one to wrap up the story. And there's a lot of questions, I'll say, after Forbidden West. All right, even with Burning Shores and stuff, again, I wanted to see the end of the trilogy sooner rather than later because of the way they kind of left things. And now it sounds like, to be honest, this is going to be a game I'm now placing in, I'm going to say 2029. And that's incredible to me. That is where you then have to start looking around at management. Like, who is running the show here with these kind of decisions? And it keeps coming back to one person. See, because it's one thing if you're, say, Jim Ryan, who set everything in motion here, which, I mean, yeah, he was in charge back then. That's what was happening. We even know Shuhei Yoshida was working with some of these games in the early stages. But as you go along, you do have to consider which ones should remain active, which ones should be canceled. So we canceled things like there was a big multiplayer Spider-Man game. We know with God of War, there was one that Bluepoint had been working on that didn't work out, and then, oh, okay, Bluepoint's now closed down, and Twisted Metal, and then just many others. They had the whole Deviation thing that fell through. I mean, what's happening with Fair Games that I guess is now called Break-In? Is that still coming out? I don't know. So what's the deal with Hermen Hulst? Honestly, this kind of feels like it should just about be it for me. He's already been demoted once, and I have to imagine that was mostly coming off of Concord because wow, like what a miss that was. Some of the quotes that were coming out in reports, this is our Star Wars game, and I tend to believe it because they did all kinds of stuff for Concord. They dedicated a large chunk of a state of play to it. They had the Amazon Prime, secret level, like an entire episode was dedicated to the game. They had controllers for it. It was a whole celebration thing, and the game lasted, 2 weeks? And then they had to refund everyone, pull it back. That way they could write the entire thing off, and I have to again imagine it comes back to Hermen Hulst, who, look, maybe he's good when it comes to the single player. I don't know. The single player stuff, I mean, he did come up through Guerrilla. Guerrilla does some very impressive things from a technical side, and then also has done some, I mean, obviously impressive stuff in their past with different IPs, even, again, creating the Horizon franchise that, while I do see back and forth as to how popular is it really, it sold tens of millions of copies as a franchise with really 2 big outings. So yeah, I mean, credit there. He doesn't have an eye for the live service stuff. I don't think Sony at all has an eye for the live service stuff. And that's why it should come back to partnering with studios that you are not reliant on for your single player games. Jason Schreier mentioned in his video that Intergalactic didn't get the full force of Naughty Dog behind it until The Last of Us Online got shelved. So that's why Naughty Dog has not shown up this entire generation with a new game, and hopefully Intergalactic comes out in 2027, so I guess Naughty Dog can make it in right under the buzzer for before the PS6 releases. Even if that's in 2028, Intergalactic could fall into that year. So it's a whole debacle right now with Sony and the live service stuff. I know they're fixated on the idea of making their own Fortnite, but there's really only one Fortnite, and that entire thing takes most of Epic to even keep it running with an insane amount of money behind it for all the collaborations and deals that they're doing. And even then, they had to lay people off because they said that Fortnite isn't keeping up with the amount that it costs to run it. By the way, Fortnite gets more than 100 million players each month, and that's not enough. So, again, I know Sony is like, oh, so much money could be made. But also, so much money could be lost, and they are certainly feeling the effects of the negative outcome with the entire live service push, and it does make you wonder how much longer do they really try to pursue it at the rate that they are now, because it kind of feels like this would be the time where you start to pull back from it and reevaluate, and yeah, that also means you kind of reevaluate someone like Hermen Hulst and what kind of power and what sort of position he has within Sony. Next up, let's talk about GTA 6, as the leaks did continue yesterday, and we had some twists and turns when it comes to the apparent group behind all of this. So what happened was we had 2 new leaks that released. I can't show them to you because Take-Two is still going around ripping everything down, copyright strikes flying all over the place. I got screenshots from the Rockstar's website and the trailer and stuff that you've probably seen over and over again as it is. But I did go through and just check out some of the leaked clips and just give an idea of some of the details there. So with these 2 new leaks that got out there, people were able to at least date one of them, as there was a certain song that was identified and it was from 2025. So yeah, some of these clips are from apparently last year, like as recent as last year with a build that was going around. Now, when you walk up to a car, people notice that Jason had the option to clone the key or smash a window. So I guess you can just have different keys made up right then and there. Or you can, just the typical Grand Theft Auto thing, put an elbow through the window and just steal the car. Now, you can surrender to cops. Jason has a taser. He was going around tasing everybody. And when one of the security guards fell over from being tased, his hat fell off. and then you can walk up and pick up the hat and put it on. So it's that Rockstar attention to detail where it's like, do you need that? Sure. You know, why not? You have an item wheel and a weapon wheel, so they separate both of those. And there was some real-time injuries happening on Jason's arm as he was kind of in a knife fight and he was getting cut by that knife. You can greet and taunt different NPCs, so you have an option for either. There were fast food restaurants, looks like you can go back to. The most controversial thing I've seen so far are that cars they do have gas meters. So I guess you're going to have to deal with the real life issues of gas prices while you're driving around. Some people like that because that adds an extra little wrinkle if you're stealing a car and it has a quarter tank versus just you can video game some things up for convenience, and I guess unlimited gas in cars could be one of them. There is a cutscene though in one of these trailers, and that raised some eyebrows because at the end, the character specifically says they won't catch me, I'm using a VPN or something like that. So people are thinking that's a wink and a nod to Rockstar and Take-Two, of course, as they are trying to track this person or this group that is putting all this information out there. Now, the leak was watermarked, saying that CyberLeak doesn't have a Twitter account. By the way, there was a CyberLeak Twitter account that was running crazy all over the place on social media, trying to convince people of things, asking questions, really just trying to get attention. And since then, that Twitter account has been banned. Their website was shut down, and still there are many fake accounts that are being made. Okay, so keep that in mind. And there are also AI-generated leaks, quote-unquote, of GTA 6 that are being posted and circulated. So it's getting a bit muddy out there in terms of what's real and what's not. So keep that in mind if you see anything that just pops up, especially if, I don't know, it has a cryptocurrency watermarked on it, which, yeah, it was like $11 million in trading had happened in terms of the amount yesterday for that cryptocurrency, because there's just a lot of eyes on it with the whole CyberLeak thing. Rockstar and Take-Two apparently are just going crazy trying to figure out what the deal is, because there's also rumor that the way that they're getting these clips is that they have a build of the game. I don't know if that's correct. Seems like everyone's kind of guessing or speculating on that now, but if they do have a build, that could be devastating for Take-Two and Rockstar, especially since there was a whole thing apparently where they were threatening to leak out an ending for the game, as in I guess there's multiple endings, but that seems like it's been debunked so far in that they don't necessarily have that. But it's hard to say because leaks keep popping up. It wouldn't shock me if more clips show up today, so we'll keep an eye out and see what happens. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Xbox at Gamescom, as they have a bunch of different games that they announced for their live streams, and we had some news get out a bit early around their anniversary Xbox controller, which we'll start with that over on D-Labs. Now, this is that X25 controller they have for the 25th anniversary that I think looks really, really cool. And this is the one with like the translucent green. Pre-orders will open on August 26th, so it does line up with, yes, Gamescom there. The price point on it is $79.99 in the US, and it's scheduled for release October 20th. So I am looking at this one. I think I'm going to pick it up because I had a translucent blue controller back then, the S-Type, on the original Xbox. One of my friends had the translucent green. It has the callback for the old school nostalgia, the memories, so I'll have to pick that up again, if nothing else. Although I might use it because it's a pretty nice looking controller there. And then Xbox also did put out their entire schedule, which you can see here for their Gamescom broadcast. I know you're looking at it too. It's right there. Mega Man Dual Override will be part of this. We're not sure if these would just be trailers or developer interviews or full-on gameplay. I'd like to think that any of the games shown here will have new gameplay in some way, whether it's through a trailer or they just sit down and play the game. I think it'd be awesome if the developers showed up, one of them were playing the game, the other one was talking about it. I'm so curious about Mega Man Dual Override because it's on RE Engine, and I just want to see what other changes or wrinkles they have for the gameplay. I'm currently in the middle of I'm replaying all the original Mega Man games. I'm into Mega Man 5 now. I've finished the first 4. And I'm having a blast. Still holds up great, right? So excited for Mega Man Dual Override here at Gamescom. I'm also looking at Tides of Annihilation. There have been, people have been pretty high on this game. There's been a lot of discussion around it impressing at some of the preview events that have happened. And then, you know what? Stuntman Hollywood. It's been a while since Stuntman's been around, and this seems like it could be really, really fun with, we'll say, some of the newer technology and systems now. And I don't know, it was such an interesting game back when it first came out, like way back in the day. And there was one on the 360 that just kind of okay. So it's only up from there, right? And I'm curious what they have for us at Gamescom. So certainly a lot to like there with what Microsoft says will be in attendance for their streams. So let me know what you're looking forward to down below in the comments. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you rented a game in the last year? 96% say no, 4% say yes. All right, so GameFly is still a thing, all right? And you know what? I will count the library. Some people don't know this. If you have a local library near you within driving distance, walking distance, whatever, a lot of them do have games, and you can borrow them, rent them for free. That is a thing. So worth checking your local library. If you didn't know that, you could check out some games and see what you think there with their selection. But GameFly is another one. Nate still rents from GameFly, so I was just thinking about that, and occasionally I'll type in and be like, are there any video rental stores around me? I would love for the kids to be able to go see like what I envision, what I remember, but I already know it's not going to be anything like how it was, you know, back in the 90s or the early 2000s, where you'd go to your Blockbuster, your Hollywood Video, your California Video, or Movie King. We had a lot, now that I'm thinking about it, in our area. There were a lot of rental stores, and now there's just none. So I know there's the last Blockbuster, but I got to travel all the way across the US, I think, to go there. So I've wondered if there is a place in the market for someone to bring back a rental store and just try it and see what happens. But I also am not the one who would take the risk on that. So it's just something I was kicking around. Would that still work? Would you stop at a rental store within your local area that just opened to browse and check it out? Would you like to go through that experience again of stopping by and picking out a DVD movie or a Blu-ray, maybe a Friday night for the weekend? And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Haiku, says, Rockstar, we're launching GTA 6 digital only to avoid leaks. Leaks anyways. Yeah, that was one of the reasons that we were kicking around as to why they were just going digital only, really, with a code in the box at retail, but no physical disc, was to avoid the idea of a master like 1.0 build getting out there ahead of release and just spoiling everything. And now here we are, months from that release in November, and it's just leaking anyway. With the initial threat of an ending even being spoiled. Again, that's kind of up in the air right now. But Rockstar and Take-Two are not happy about any of this. They are not even able to get to their big like Netflix premiere without us already seeing several minutes of gameplay and little details here and there. Also not in exactly the light that they want the game to be shown, as I'm sure what they will be displaying there with Netflix is like the best possible scenario for the game. I still have a lot of questions around frame rate. Will this be something that can touch 60 FPS? Some have mentioned that the leaks are kind of like that, they're 60. But then it's also, okay, what were they running it on? And again, a lot of questions there. So man, they thought they had one. Like, oh, it will just be digital. No way it's going to leak out, and then it leaks out. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear about how I think Sony needs to shake things up, especially over the next few years. I did a whole video looking into that, and I'll leave it right below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.